Good afternoon. I want to welcome these leaders for coming in to have this very important discussion about some of the most pressing issues of our time. I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit. And
on the recession thing, and not to belabor the point, but you said that journalists use the phrase technical recession. I mean, I have notes from the last few days from Deutsche Bank, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, and Fitch, all using that phrase. Those aren't, rabble-rousing journalists. And so I'm wondering, is that simply a phrase we won't hear from the White House? So on Thursday, with negative GDP, what will you call that?
So a top official, I'll give you one, a top official at Goldman Sachs recently said it would be historically unusual for the labor market to be as strong as it is at present, even at the very onset of a recession. What we would call a recession, just according to how it is defined. If you look at consumer spending, if you look at what businesses and households are investing in, you continue to see the resilience, and it is consistent. It is not consistent with a recession. And so that's what the indicators that we are looking at.
The Biden administration is trying to point out the definition of a recession is nuanced. But I got to tell you, I struggle with this. I get that why they want to do it from a political perspective, but you can't fake this.
No, I was laughing to myself. In my view, I should be drafted into the NBA. Like the NBA executives didn't agree with that.
Right.
Like it doesn't really matter what you think. There is a technical definition, 2 straight quarters of negative economic growth. They clearly believe that is likely to come to pass later this week. They're trying to pre-butt it. To your point, we get why they're doing it politically.
Right.
At the same time, we have these terms for reasons. You don't have to like it. Of course they don't like it.
Joe Basically a textbook.
But you don't get to change the nomenclature in the middle of a campaign because it doesn't work for you.
At the same time, we are seeing things slow, as you would expect in this context. But the key thing right now is that as we are in this transition, the policy choices we make now, whether we actually take more action to lower prices and make things more affordable for families, these will help determine how successful we are at actually making that transition.
You have Senator Warnock, who's trying to run for re-election. When he came into office and helped flip the Senate to the Democrats, he was a big buddy of Joe Biden. Now you go down on the battleground states like Georgia, a lot of Democrats are backing off a little bit because they politically think they need distance.
There's quite a bit of distancing from Warnock's campaign from the president.
There is all of this talk about a possible recession and the technical definition of what it means. Let's forget that and just get practical. Explain to us the health of our economy right now.
Well, we're in a transition, and it feels unique because it is unique.
There's discussion over the weekend, Janet Yellen sort of saying, well, if you have 2 quarters of contracting GDP growth, not necessarily a recession. I covered the economy for many years. I was told by everybody I spoke to that 2 negative quarters, 2 contracting quarters, means that the economy is in a recession. Do you believe that? Is that what you ascribe to?
That is not the actual definition of a recession. It is a significant contractionary period over a few months.
The president last week, when he was thinking about the climate emergency, no offshore drilling would have been part of that edict of executive orders. That doesn't sound like we're doing everything we can to try to open things up.
We have to do everything we can to ease price pressures at the pump today while we're making an absolutely aggressive play for a path to cleaner energy and renewables in the future. And that means we need an ample supply of energy today. What we need to make sure that the composition of that supply shifts towards renewables while we make this transition.
Following up on what you said about the National Bureau of Economic Research, they also did not declare a recession in 2008 until December. That's 12 months after the recession had already been in place in the U.S. economy. But based on what the president said earlier, have his economic advisors told him they also don't think a recession is likely? And what is exactly the White House's definition of a recession?
Again, I'm not going to define it from here. I'm just going to leave it to the NBER, as we have stated, of how they define recession.
We won't declare it one until they have declared it one.
I'm just saying that we're just not going to define it. We use the indicators that the NBER, the National Bureau of Economic Research, have used. We've mentioned that a few times. Historic job creation, and so that is important. And let's not forget about the bipartisan infrastructure law that as well that has helped create jobs.
Okay, I just want to be clear though. So we're not going to hear the White House say if there is a recession that there is one until the National Bureau of Economic Research has declared it one?
What I'm saying is that the definition, that the technical definition, and Secretary Yellen said this yesterday on Meet the Press, is the National Bureau of Economic Research that looks at a broad range of data. And I'm not going to get into a hypothetical right now. We don't do that, but we're using that as clearly an indicator, and why, and they lay out how they get to that definition.